best trip I've had all day. I know, right? Yeah. Nice little rig.
Yeah. But there's not really much they can do.
Last time I touched that road, it was
It's okay for understand is why the hay center. The hay center. Why is it? You just can't.
but I got
Come on.
I don't know. I'm down 2 airbags and I'm like shattered this. It's bad. Yeah. One spot. You have about.
Then it's really
All right, it is 6:01, so we will begin our proceedings of our board meeting. The first thing we do is call to order. And our meeting is called to order at 6:01. And next item on the agenda, please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is posting verification. Who can do that? Ready? Maris and who else? And Marty? We did post the Opens Meeting Act law report on the back wall. A friendly reminder, our mission statement is inspiring our youth and expecting results every day. Roll call, everyone is here. So we will move into we have 2 items on the agenda. The first item is we will have a building sharing opportunity to share with you 3 things. I will give a little history about how we have come to the point that we are today. We have several individuals here that will help share with you our building options. And then we also brought in our financial partners as well to talk with us about how we can potentially fund some things. So with that, after they are done with the presentation, the board will have the opportunity to share their thoughts and their comments. And then we will open it up for a 30-minute open question and answer opportunity. And then we will close that, but please know, after that 30 minutes, many of us will be sticking around. So if you have questions or comments and want to ask those individuals, you sure can. So thank you to everyone who took the time today to go through our Palisade location. I'm sure you can agree that we've got some things that need to be tended to. Number 1 is ADA accessibility, and that doesn't go without saying the same thing needs to happen in Wauneta as well. So we have probably a larger list of deficits that we really need to address. But as our board, we are here as your elected officials to share with you what we think is to do right for our students and to do right for our staff and be prudent with our tax funds, which, as we know, property evaluations continue to go up every year. So that means what you're paying in taxes typically goes up too, because we don't have control over what people are spending on their land. So with that, I will be more than happy to start. Thank you to Jacob Sertis for putting this together. Here are your presenters tonight. I'm Allison Salmon, president of the board, if you didn't know who I was. Mr. Geyer is our superintendent. He's over at the other table. Carl Dietz is from First National Capital Markets. He is a former superintendent, served several districts around Nebraska, anywhere from Ogallala to Eustis Farnham to Will Hill. And the list might go a little further than that, but those are the ones that I know of. And we also have Tobin Buchanan here. He is a former superintendent of Perkins County, so not very far away. They also did some major renovations for those of us that have gone and saw their new facility. And they've gone through some big things too, closing some facilities as well. And I'm here to tell you today, we as a board have not decided to close any facilities whatsoever. But our feasibility study showed that we would be most efficient with our tax dollars, improve our test scores, and reduce our bus time if we had the opportunity to be in one location. We are not here today to say that that's what we are doing. So I want to clear the air on that because there are many people in this room think that that's what we are doing. We shared in our minutes that the most feasible thing to do was to be in one location. We agreed upon that, but we did never agree that we needed to close a facility. So that's why we're having informational meetings, is to talk about those things. Also, Mark Lewis is here from BD Construction. BD Construction has done a lot of construction projects with schools and with other hospitals in our area and throughout Nebraska. He is also a former Culberson graduate, so. Trenton. Oh, he got here. And then we have Jacob Sertich here, who's from Wilkins Architecture, Design, and Planning. And he resides in Kearney, but he works closely with BD and looking at conceptual designs. So I know that there have been questions like, as a board, we actually have some construction plans. We have no construction plans. Everything is conceptual at this point. We have not signed any document saying what we are doing at this point. But if you want to go to the next slide, I think this is a perfect opportunity. Here's our timeline in history. Now, I could be off a couple of years. I haven't lived in your district forever, but at about year 2000, a community committee was formed. And Mr. Isom was our superintendent at the time. And he formed a community group that asked to look at this facility. And what could we do here? And I know Lori served on that. I know Michelle Harkerode. And there might be some others of you in this room that served on that committee too. But like I said, that was a little bit before my time. So just to review that update. Meanwhile, the building design was presented in about 2006. And the committee presented that new one-level building somewhere on this property, and I don't know where that was, and that it would house the current classrooms. No action was taken. So we did not have a superintendent willing to take on that, and you did not have a board that would provide that leadership to move forward. What those reasons were, I don't know. I was not on the board at that point in time, so I can't answer that. And I don't believe any of my other board members were on at that time either. So then in 2017, because we're still talking about we have deficits and facility updates that need to happen. So BD came in and provided a facility audit for this location only. And you'll see, and they did audit both campuses, but we really talked about what was going on here because we knew we still had an issue. This building is 98 years old. And it is a stick build with bricks on the outside. It is not a steel concrete build with bricks on the outside. So I want you all to know, like, they aren't even the same facility in the first place. But, so the board learned that only this gym today was really the only thing that was salvageable, that we could use and do something with. And again, no action was taken, okay? Again, I don't know the whole reason there either, but I know we worked to try to move some things forward, and it didn't happen. So, fast forward to 2021. We begin these building discussions again because we still have facility issues at both locations, right? So, we start having these open discussions about the deficiencies at both locations. Both locations are not ADA accessible today at all. And we have some younger students that this is seriously going to be affecting in the next few years. But I also want to think of, we have some older teachers that I bet they could utilize some better ways to get to the top floor of the building, or when we have students that get injured for whatever reason, an accident or a sporting event. Again, they have to spend their time down in the office area, taking away from classroom time, which is engagement with their teachers as well as their fellow students. So, we came together with the best way to update some facilities without a major impact to your taxes today. So that's where we are. We have done a lot of studying over our finances, where we are structurally, where, how does this impact everyone? So here we are, it's 2022, so now we're starting with our facilities planning, and that seemed to get a lot of people in an uproar over, you're not communicating with us. Well, all of this that's happening today was planned in the beginning, but we needed to make sure that we had a decent design that we felt comfortable with, that we could afford from a board perspective, and we didn't want to bring something to you that we couldn't support. So with that, we know that we have a solid footprint structurally in Wauneta today. We know that. It is the concrete, iron, and the brick on the outside. So it is a solid building. So it provides that footprint. So with that, then we wanted to start talking about what facility issues do we have there. Again, ADA is a huge one. We have a 1933 kitchen that has been serving lunches and breakfasts for a very long time, and they do a fabulous job. And so with that, our accessibility issues. Neither building is sprinklered either. That's a code issue. Because when these buildings were built, they didn't have to have sprinklers. So we'd just slide down the tube and we'd be fine. So also we have some life safety and egress issues, just what I talked about. If there was an event that they had to get out, some might not. Again, I feel that we would do a really good job to get those students out. We've never had that opportunity, but please know in this facility alone, we had a major flood when Mr. Dahl was here. And it came from the 3rd floor all the way to the bottom, okay? And then, years after that, we had a huge electrical issue. And that's because what kind of pressure we are putting on our electrical system, because now everything is internet, everything is computer. So we had this building go down electrically, and we had to be closed for 2 days. I don't know if any of you remember that, but that happened. So, and then over the years, like this whole gym has been repainted. We put down a nice sport court, but all of each room has been updated to the best of our ability today. Most of them have new windows because a lot of them have been blown out in different storms, things of that nature. Just recently, we had a radiator fall off the wall in the preschool room. Why it didn't go up in flames and smoke it up, I don't know. But again, I think the Lord was looking over us. So we've got some things here that we, as an entire community, and that's Wauneta and Palisade together, that we haven't addressed. So we are here as your board today to want to move forward with that. We have restroom issues in this facility for sure. We know when we host events here, we have nothing that's ADA accessible. I have a mother-in-law who's in a wheelchair. She can't use a restroom in this building. So I don't think I'm alone in knowing that that's a concern. At our other building, our science lab is outdated. It has never been updated since it was built. We also have floor issues on every floor, and that includes this building too. I also hear them in Wauneta, which that will be next week's meeting in Wauneta. We're going to do exactly the same thing that we're talking about today. We talked about restrooms, accessibility, security, and safety. We don't have a secure area in Wauneta today. We don't have a secure vestibule. So in the event we had an active shooter or we had an angry parent that needed, to stay out of the building, we wouldn't know that till after the fact. So, and we talked about the kitchen that's outdated and other issues, but we're here to talk with you today about what we felt was the best use of our tax dollars. We have set ourselves up financially by utilizing what we currently have in place today. And I'll let the financial guys talk about it, but I want you all to know, anything that's renovated comes out of our general fund. Anything that's brand new has to come out of your building fund. Those are the laws, those are the rules. So today we've been really blessed to have just a 99-cent levy, and people will ask us, why are we beefing up our general fund? Well, we don't know what next Band-Aid we're gonna have to put on either building, because we don't know. So we have done a really good job financially moving forward to prepare for this and to share this with you, because when we started our feasibility study back last fall, the first question that Carl asked us, how long do you guys want to be here? Do you want to be here 5 years? Do you want to be here 10 years? Or do you want to be here longer than that? And collectively, all 6 of us said, we still want to be here in 50 years. So, I was recently at a meeting and I want to share this. 30 years ago, we started Wauneta Palisade as a merged, consolidated district, doing exactly what we do today, and that's educating our students. But how we do it is different, right? We have ADA accessibility, we have code issues, things that not a board would have thought of back in the 90s that we would be dealing with today. So I want to remind you, we are still doing the same thing, which is educating our students. We just do it differently. Our delivery methods are different. Our kids and our teachers want a nicer facility to teach in, and I want to applaud every one of our teachers. They never come to us and complain about their conditions. I have never heard my children complain about the conditions either. They do a phenomenal job with a building that's 98 years old and another one that's, right behind it in Wauneta. So again, I am very proud of this district. I too am a transplant. But when Carl said, how long do we want to be here? 50 years. So we have children that are graduating our districts, and we know how valuable they are, right? We want them to go out and get that education or that trade degree, whatever that looks like, but we want them to come back. And without a solid school, how are we going to be attractive to them? And I would ask that you all ask yourselves that question. How do we attract those students? How do we keep them wanting to return? Because we feel like we do a pretty good job. And I said it at the Palisade meeting. We are Palisade and Wauneta together. That's why we're called Wauneta Palisade. Yes, we have two communities, but collectively we are one. And as your board, we are also representing you. So I just want you to know that we have worked really hard to work through this project. We have signed no deal, but we want to share with you what we think is the best option at this point in time. It doesn't fix everything, but we're going to work to get there. So again, that's what I would like to say. So I will turn it over to Jacob.
Thank you, Allison. Again, Jacob Sertich with Wilkins Architecture Design Planning from Kearney. Thank you for having me here tonight. I've really enjoyed every trip that I've taken here, and everybody's been very friendly and hospitable, so thank you very much for that. Gonna lock up on me? That'd be convenient. There we go. Maybe I fell asleep. Okay. All right. So again, I operate under the premise that Wauneta, the Wauneta building has good bones, good structure, if you will. And again, there's a lot to work with there. So the focus, our focus, as we've been tasked with by the board, was to study the Wauneta campus and develop some options for them to consider as we study and look at the facilities, the district facilities. So we looked at a number of different options. This may have been option number 5 or 6 in the grand scheme. But anyways, so when we got to this scheme here, so some of the other schemes that we looked at, as you're aware there, we really don't have any room to go north, and really don't have any room to go south. So really the options are we can go east, or we can go west. And initially we started out looking at just going to the west and putting an addition to the west there. An addition consisting of a new kitchen, a dining area, and a practice gym. And as you put all that on the west side there, it really consumes any possibility for any playground space in the future. So we came up with another option that looked at putting those facilities in an addition on the east side of the building. And I guess kind of out of the box thinking a little bit from the standpoint that yes, if we go to the east, then we will have to close a 1-block section of Shawnee Avenue. But as we looked at it, Shawnee dead ends to the north at your athletic field, and then to the south it dead ends at the tracks. So really, it's not like it's a through street. It's not like it's the old Highway 6 here. So minimal traffic, We've also had a survey done to look at as far as like utilities in Shawnee. There is some water running in Shawnee, but nothing that can't be relocated for reasonable accommodations there. So again, looking at a potential addition to the east there of the building, and the nice thing with that would be that we can then, with the parking lot here, no longer will kids or people coming to events have to cross the street if they're parking over here. With what's left of Shawnee here to the south, that has an opportunity for certainly to be used by the school during the week, but then on Sundays, the church can use this additional parking area there, off-street parking. So we think that'll work pretty nice there. And then again, as far as the addition is concerned, a practice gym, kitchen, dining space, some restrooms, and then also we'd have the opportunity, this could become an entrance here for if there's activities going on, volleyball, basketball, you can come in here, and then if you want to go to a varsity event, you're going to go to the, if you're coming from the north, then you're going to go to the right to go to the current main competition gym. If there's a sub-varsity game going on in the practice gym, then you'd go to the left and be able to go to your event there in that gym. So I'll touch on that a little bit more here coming up in the next slide, but essentially just wanted to give you kind of a lay of the land there, if you will. We are looking at potentially possibly creating a pickup and drop-off drive there to the south, but we are aware there's a fair amount of grade change there that we would need to contend with, and we certainly have some good ideas there as far as how we can accomplish that there. So again, these are concept plans at this point, so we don't have shovel ready drawings yet or anything like that, but this is again a step in the process towards at some point getting to that point where we have construction drawings. So again, looking at things in a little more detail here. So just to explain this, and before I do that, I do want to mention, so on the last slide here tonight, we do have a QR code on there. So if you want, at the end of the presentation, if you're not able to, some of you on the ends there, if you're not able to see the graphics or some of the more detailed information, just come up with your phone and it'll take you to the school's website, and on the school's website, the entire presentation will be up there and posted to the school's website. We'll also make it available here on the printed copy if you want to do it that way as well. So anyways, looking at things in more detail here, so this is the main footprint again of the Wauneta with the addition here. This plan right here and this plan right here, this is the second floor of the building, and this plan right here is the third floor of the building. So again, going back to the issues that the major issues that Allison identified earlier in the presentation. So in addition to this new construction, then it would be our intent with the renovation work to address as many of the deficiencies that have been noted through the facilities audit, but also just in some of the other documentation that's been done on the existing facilities. So again, we hope to address as many of those as we can with the renovation, including, as Allison mentioned, the accessibility issues. And so I'll point out, we believe we've isolated a location there within the existing footprint of the three-story building for an elevator that would serve all of the levels except for your current weight room, which is right here. That's down at the lowest level. That was the original gym, of course, many years ago. In 1933, that was the original gym down there, and then there was an elevated stage area, which is again part of the weight room there. So how we would get down to that level is we would put a ramp going down to that level, and with that then between the elevator and a couple of ramps, then you would have accessibility or wheelchair access to basically all the levels of this campus here. Some of the other items, again, renovating and providing updates for the science lab. Of course, that's important as well. The kitchen, we talked about that some. That would be in the new addition here, and then where the current kitchen is, that would be renovated into a classroom, along with the current dining room across the hallway. That would be converted into classroom space as well. I should just mention, in case if you do pull up the drawings or the presentation, we've been studying different locations, possible locations for relocating wrestling and bringing wrestling into the main campus building there in Wauneta instead of down the street. So if you see what looks like a wrestling mat, those are just studies. That's not to say that wrestling's taking over the band room or anything like that. We were just looking at different locations where we could fit wrestling and wrestling mats. So just wanted to point that out. Other work, there would be, of course, some of the less noticeable things would be the fire sprinklers. Of course, putting fire sprinklers in the building, and that's a goal. Certainly, with the state fire marshal, they would like to see basically every school building be sprinkled, and so that would be part of the plan. In addition to that would be some HVAC overhaul and upgrades with that campus as well. And then also, we talked about safety and security a little bit. So there would be a small addition on the south side of the school building at the current main entrance there to provide a secure entrance vestibule. So if you come to the school during school hours, you could get into the vestibule, but that's as far as you'd be able to get. From there, you'd be buzzed in, and from there, we'll do some remodeling to where you would then go through the office area, and then you could either be escorted to your location or be sent on your way to wherever you're wanting, whatever your destination is in the building. So again, just to kind of summarize, the new addition to the east, closing the one block section of Shawnee, and then doing renovation work to a lot of the renovation work. Most of that would be focused on the 33 building, but of course fire sprinklers throughout, some HVAC work in other areas, but a lot of the work would be focused on the 33 building, and getting access to the parts of that building there and the addition. So those are some of the highlights as far as this conceptual design here. And again, check it out later on if you want to take a look at it in a little bit more detail and up close. This is a graphic we put together here primarily for assisting with putting together a cost estimate, which BD Construction from Kearney, they've put together quite a detailed cost estimate, really as detailed as you can get at a conceptual level, but we provide them enough information that they can put together a cost estimate, and they always do a really good job with that. It's certainly gotten a lot more challenging with the market the way it is, construction market, but they're still staying on top of that there. So this just kind of shows areas of whether it's new construction or more intensive renovation versus light renovation, so that the color codes here kind of represent those different levels of construction. These are some renderings that we put together. This would be from the northeast, looking back towards the building. So there you can see the practice gym and the commons area there. That's from the north side of the building. And then this view is from the southwest. You can see the modified or the updated main entrance, and then off in the background there you can see the practice gym, kitchen. Of course, deliveries would take place there to the kitchen, we don't have to go down any steps or anything like that, but I'll be there in that space. And then the church here to your right. And as we further move along in the process, we'll develop additional renderings as well for so that people can visualize what the space is going to look like when all the construction work is completed. Again, so bring that together. I mentioned BD Construction has put together a cost estimate. So right now, the project all in, we're looking at a range of 8 to 8.5 million, and that would be all in. So that would include some contingency, design engineering costs. There's some other costs in there as far as some testing for quality control tests like concrete testing, and there's also sometimes if for a portion of the project that the school would borrow funds, there's some costs that are associated with that. That's all figured into that $8 to $8.5 million range there. With that, I'm going to turn it over to First National Capital Markets and Carl Dietz. Do you want the clicker, or do you want me to advance as you just...
You know, you can advance it for me.
Okay, just go like this.
Because I think yeah, I'll just nod at you when I'm ready. Okay. As Ellison said, I was an Ogallala Public Schools superintendent for 8 years, but I am a small school person. My first teaching job was in Binkelman back in 1981. And I graduated from Farnham High School. I was the superintendent at Eustis Farnham High School when we closed the Farnham site. So I was superintendent when we closed the high school that I graduated from. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that I'm saying that you need to close a building, but I know what it's like. Farnham has a newsletter. They put everybody's birthdays and anniversaries dates in their little newsletter and their yearly calendar. And my name and my wife's name, we are no longer listed in the community calendar. So, true story, I know those things can happen, but sometimes, you know, you make tough decisions, but I'm just here to kind of tell you some financial information. I was a 2-year interim superintendent at Wilcox Hildreth. We did a project similar to what you're thinking about right now, but been in small schools most of my life and grew up in small schools and know the importance of our small school, community schools, and that's the lifeblood. I understand that. But we look at finances and also education. So Jacob just gave you a number of between 8 and 8.5 million on conceptual drawings. The board, what they would use, as Allison said earlier, $3 million from general fund depreciation fund towards some renovation. And 1.5 from the special building fund will be used toward this project. Go to the next one. So this is historical. Now, we skip a year in here. I thought, I had all this data, and I thought, I'm going to go skip a year and just see what it was the prior year. So this is the cash balance of your special building fund, depreciation fund, and general fund. Those are 3 funds that can be used towards facilities. Anything, a depreciable item, or special building fund, new construction, or the general fund, some other facility issues that can be transferred to the depreciation fund. But you can see here in some lean years, the total was very low. And when the board started thinking about the possibility we have to do something with our facilities, they started increasing the cash balance of the 3 funds to say, so this sends me a message that this isn't a decision that they made easily or just overnight. It's something that's been in the talks for a while, and rather than being reactive, the Board of Education was proactive and saying, we need to get some money set aside for something at some point in the future. Go ahead, I think the next one's Tobin's. Yeah.
I'll just do a quick overview of some numbers that have already been mentioned. So the project approximately 8 to 8.5 million. Carl walked through some funds that the board has accumulated over time to go toward that project. What I'll share is just what a lot of schools are facing when they're looking at, I think everybody ideally would just want to save up over time and do a project. But sometimes you start to pencil that out and think about how long it would take to accumulate those dollars. Your district can accumulate about $500,000 a year through the building fund at the levels that it's been being taxed at. So to make up that other $4 million would be at least 8 years. And in the meantime, what happens to the project number etc. How much do we have to continue to put Band-Aids on while we wait to get there? And do we begin to chase a number and end up paying a couple million more by trying to save? So that's a lot of times when school districts faced with those same needs will visit with us about the options out there to monetize the money now to help do a project, and what's that look like as far as interest paid and paying back over time. One of the main financing vehicles schools are using is called a lease purchase. It's a lease agreement. By statute, schools can only enter into a lease agreement up to 7 years maximum maturity length. So they can enter into a lease agreement, take the dollars now to help with their project, pay it back over 7 years. The payback, the dollars that they need to use to make those annual payments, have to come from the special building fund when they do a brick and mortar type project with a lease. So your board has currently been levying 14 cents in their special building fund to help generate some cash equity toward the project. They would have to designate about 12 cents of that to borrow $3 million as a lease purchase and pay that back over 7 years. So those lease payments would actually be within that budgetary number that's already been in place over the past several years. One of the other things we talked about the other day in one of our planning meetings was, is there another vehicle out there to help a little bit with part of this project that the board could access? And this board has done something called a QCPUF bond in the past. It stands for Qualified Capital Purpose Undertaking Fund. It's a statutory fund that boards can use to address life safety code issues like fire safety, security, moisture abatement, mold abatement, asbestos, things like that. ADA accessibility. So we looked at, is there an opportunity there to help with this as well? And so the statutory limit on what a board can tax for that QCPUF bond is 3 cents. So based on your district's valuation, if they were to use that fund and use 3 cents there, they could contribute about $1 million toward this project using that fund. Both of these financing vehicles do not require a vote of the public. They only require a majority vote of the board. What most boards and what your board wants to make sure is that they're holding public meetings, talking about this ahead of time, sharing some information before they would just go forward with entering into some kind of financing like that. And then I just have a few, I guess, as I work with schools on the next slide, some of the financial considerations that are out there right now, some of the driving forces and maybe pressures and thought processes that districts and boards are using as they decide, should we borrow to do some of these projects? One of the things I wanted to point out is when I model that $4 to $4.5 million we talked about as cash equity, if they were borrowing on that instead of having it today as cash, that would add an additional probably about $500,000 in interest over the life of a financing. So we understand, I was a superintendent, I understand sometimes people say, why are you saving up so much money? And I think the thought was, we've got some needs, they're gonna have to be addressed. So by having those dollars today, depending on your perspective on that, it could certainly be viewed as an interest savings because it's cash toward the project. And then a lot of people are struggling right now with what's the right time, cost of waiting type thing. What we're seeing out there, and I won't speak to this, it's not my expertise, but when we pencil out things, kind of that, should we just save up model, I think historically it's more volatile today than it has been, but historically the cost of construction goes up about 3 to 5% a year. So if you're saving and the number's going up at that rate, 5%, 3%, it pencils out if you can borrow at 2.5% and pay it back, you're money ahead. Whether you like, nobody really likes debt, but in those situations I think districts are seeing it pencils out. It actually saves money for taxpayers. On the amount borrowed, about that $4 million I was discussing, if the interest rate should go up 1%, and we're seeing some pretty significant raises on interest rates right now, on that $4 million, again, waiting for 6 months, a year, I'm not telling you when you should go or anything like that, but I get asked this question: what if we wait a year? What might it look like? I think we can pretty confidently say there's a great chance rates will be up at least a percentage point. So that would just add to interest cost, not necessarily getting you any more brick and mortar, just interest cost. So I think the overall message of my information is the board's tried really hard to look at this from a tax request or tax levy neutral situation. With that potential QCPUF bond of being 2 to 3 cents, I think we could comfortably say it'd be neutral or very close to neutral, maybe a couple cents higher to accomplish this project for the funds that go toward actual building and construction.
Could you go back 2 slides? One more. So when you look at this chart, some people might wonder, we have almost $6 million cash in bank between the 3 funds. Why don't we just spend all of that? Well, you have to have money, cash carryover for operation of your school district. Some of the money set aside in the depreciation fund could be for buses, other facility needs. So you can't use all of that toward this project. So I just wanted to clarify that. Go ahead. Let's go back to where we were. So this is the levy information for the school district going back to 2010-11, 95.74 cents for all funds. QCPUF, at one time you were paying on a small amount on the QCPUF bond, building and general fund. The levy has dropped a little bit, down to 99 cents this year. So that's a levy. But really, what's the tax impact? Go to the next slide. So this is the tax impact. Because your valuations were increasing, levy was staying fairly consistent. This is the amount of money you were generating total, 4.2 million. Then it dropped to 3.941, and most recently you're taxing for $3.8 million. Now go to the next one. And this is, as you could see, the tax request was going up, but look what happened to your state aid. You were getting just shy of $1 million in 2007-8, went to 7-something or 8-something, gradually dropped, and the only thing you're getting today is income tax rebate money from for state aid, equalization aid. So reflective, your tax requests were going up, but state aid disappeared for the school district. And I think there's one more. Now this is historically going down back to 2009-10, your general fund expenses. Now this isn't total expenses, this is your general fund operating expenses. And as you can see, over time, the school district has been really conservative, about a 2.6% growth since 2009-10, an average annual growth. There's some peaks and valleys, but nothing real drastic on your charts here. So really sends a message that you're not really overspending, or you haven't had those sharp increases like I see in some school districts. I think that was
I just want to highlight what you said. I think as part of the discussion from the board were the total tax request this last year is 3.8 million for all the funds, and it's been as high as 4.2. So even if they decide to go forward with a project like this, it should be about the same or even a little under than some years that the total tax request was a little higher. And that comes from the cash equity they've looked at, the size of the project, and what they're choosing to potentially consider. If that point didn't land, I just wanted to use those charts to kind of illustrate that.
Okay. And working with Jacob and the rest of the team, we wanted to talk about what might be some frequently asked questions. So this is the elephant in the room. How much will it cost to replace the Palisade school building? We reported at our last meeting an estimation of 7.5 for a new facility to house the classrooms. And then,
I could probably help you explain too.
Okay, and then we thought maybe about a $500,000 facelift for this gym today. So, but I'm going to turn it over to Mark because he currently is working with Elm Creek They just passed a bond so they could do some new elementary things. And so we have a new updated number, and I'm gonna turn it over to you, let you share.
Yeah, we were sharing with the board like a 7.5 number, and we just got some bid numbers back like 2 or 3 days ago from just being Elm Creek, so we updated those numbers. What we're seeing in the construction industry, back in 2020, inflation rates were above 16%. 2021, we're looking at something similar, so it's been really tough budgeting. And so we're trying to update the numbers. We're trying to forecast what inflation will do, although that's difficult. We're hoping for a leveling out. So back in 2017, we also did what would it cost to replace this, and I think at that time we were like at 6.3 or something like that. So that's what I think I see John sitting over there, and we were looking at those numbers then. So we've seen a significant jump in the last couple of years with the supply issues are also an issue. I just wanted to briefly explain that to the group. So
Yes. So, and we're looking at all options still, right? And with that, because it would be new construction, that would be something that would have to come from our taxpayers in the form of a bond. And we, as the board, we are not there today. We are not ready to come to you and ask you to pass an $8.7 to a $9 million bond. So we are here today to talk about what we know that we can fund, what we know that we can update today, and address a good portion of our needs. So, yeah. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So what about just fixing this building here? So again, a 98-year-old building, and as Allison mentioned, wood framed, as opposed to steel and concrete. And you know, it's done well for nearly 100 years. But we did have a structural engineer come through and look at both campuses, and there are some. I'm not going to say it. Believe me, I'm not going to stand here and say that, you know, your kids are in danger or anything like that by going to school here or anything like that. But there are some issues that the structural engineer noted that that should be addressed if you know, if the district would continue to want to operate the 1924 building here. So you add that, you factor that in along with many of the other issues as far as like even like the weather tightness. So leaky roofs. The windows, some of them are broken, just in not good shape. The handicap accessibility issues, the fire sprinklers, and you know, we can go on as far as some other things as well. But again, if you factor all those together and you add everything up, it just doesn't seem like it's like it really pencils out in terms of investing that kind of money into a 100-year-old wood frame building. Now, if it was maybe steel and concrete, then that might be a different story. But again, you factor all those things, put them all together, and really, from an investment standpoint, just as an architect speaking here, it wouldn't seem to be the best use of tax dollars to invest a lot into the 1924 building here. Want this one or me?
I'll let you, and then I'll tag team.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay.
Why do we need another gym in Wauneta? These are some items that I've heard from the board and administration. So this isn't all just coming from me here, but this is what I've gathered from the meetings I've been a part of, and also the projects that I've been a part of in my career, and more recent career here too as well. As far as some of the benefits, better practice time for athletes. Of course, there's and I'm not speaking just your district in particular, but in general, there's more athletes participating in sports than at one time. You know, even in the last 40 to 45 years, with more girls and women's sports and everything like that. So just the whole complexion, youth sports. There's just a greater need and more demand for gym space. So that'll help with, again, not having kids practicing really late or really early in the morning. Again, I mentioned more youth sports, but there gives it gives more opportunities for practice time and gym space, the flexible scheduling, and even looking over at Wauneta, since you have the upper grades there, there's greater opportunities then, since you do have the stage there in the main gym. If you have the practice gym, that should give you a little bit greater flexibility even when you're hosting or having performing arts events or something like that. Again, it should give you some greater scheduling flexibility there. And then also, as I look at other districts either that we've worked in the recent past or are currently working with, or some other districts, I would say a large majority of your peer institutions, so other Class D schools, many of them do have a second gym on that secondary campus, and two in particular that we've worked with here in the last 3 years. Wilcox-Hildreth, they have, well actually right now they have 3 gyms, technically 3 gyms at their Wilcox campus, which is where the high school is at. And then Diller Odell, which we worked with on the southeast part of the state, their secondary campus, they also have two gyms there as well. So just a couple of points of reference there as far as some peer institutions.
The one thing that I heard most around our table when we were talking about this, our student athletes really prefer to practice in their competition gym that they play in. And so constantly our coaches are either scheduling 5 a.m. practice so that either the girls or the boys are practicing that early and then the other is right after school, or if they're both after school, then vice versa, somebody's staying until 8, 9 o'clock at night. We know that that takes away from safety for our students that are driving. We also know that the one reason that we are in business is for education. Then they need that time to get their educational projects taken care of. So that was the one thing that I heard. Some of you have student athletes that are at the high school level today. I'm sure you've heard it around your dinner table. We love practicing on our competition gym. This gym today that we are in has been a great fit considering where we started. It was a tile, and then we brought in the sport court. And we've utilized it for competition. And we use it for different junior high events. And we'll continue to utilize this because it's here. It's a great facility. It helps with those scheduling of all those youth sports. Never before did we have kindergarten basketball, 3rd and 4th grade, 5th and 6th grade. Again, the other half of education is that sports gym. And the NSAA will tell you that too. That is a huge motivator for many of our students. Knowing that they get to play is a huge motivator for them to do well in the classroom. So, but listening to everybody, I don't know what the scheduling looks like, but I have helped with the youth sports programs, and it is hard to get in because not only do we do that here, but we also utilize wrestling here too, and that's becoming a larger program as well. So again, the broad scope of things, in the 50s, we only had men's basketball, and then it wasn't until the 60s that Title IX started, and so now we had to do the same thing for boys and girls rather than just boys. So that's grown too. So we didn't want to downplay that at all. It is super important. Safety is huge. So that was one reason. And we know it'll be utilized. So.
Next one, why do we need a secure entry? We talked about this a little bit before, but the safety and security of the students and staff is certainly a top district priority. And Allison mentioned this too. There's more than just active shooter situations. There are some other instances too where it really it works well to have something like a secure entrance. And I would say it's really become we don't do any school facilities anymore unless it's like renovating a gym or something like that. But if it's touching the school building, we really don't do any projects anymore that don't provide for a safe, secure entrance and a controlled entrance to the school building. Why do we need a new cafeteria and kitchen? Again, we did touch on this a little bit earlier, but the 1933 kitchen is outdated, doesn't meet current codes, and it's just too small too compared with today's standards. So again, there's a lot of quite a few projects that Mark and I have done together at BD and Wilkins, and and other projects that we've had were similar era of building. And they've updated the schools made an investment and the community's made an investment to upgrade their kitchen facilities. And I've heard it many times once they had a chance to be in that new space for a little bit. They're like, why didn't we do this 5, 10, 15 years ago? How did we get by with these older facilities? And again, to Allison's point, you've done a great job to make do and do a really nice job with what the facilities that you have. But this would be a great time to update those kitchen facilities there. And that's not even talking about just the functional aspects of going down the stairs for loading, for food storage and things like that too. So.
And I want to give a quick shout out to all of our kitchen staff. They do an amazing job in the short amount of time that they have to prepare breakfast, turn around and prepare lunch, get all of those students through. And we know here in this facility, we start at 10:30 Mountain Time for our students to start through their lunch schedule. And it's not that much different in Wauneta. I think they started about 11:15 for the junior high, 6th grade on up. And again, those ladies do a phenomenal job. And there isn't one kid that hasn't come home to say, I love Nikki's cooking. I love Tracy's cooking. And so I'm very thankful to work with the board that agrees that our school nutrition is very important. And so with all of those ladies, they do a great job. And the other staff that help out too. And our students are very polite. They are very appreciative, and that will continue. But I would love an opportunity for our kitchen staff to not feel so cramped. Next week you can come and tour Wauneta, but the oven is from the 60s. It hasn't been upgraded. Here we do have new oven and stove that was upgraded when Mr. Dahl was here. So, and that's a nice one. So, I just want to share that.
You want to take this one?
Yes, absolutely. So we talked about how does this project impact students. Something I do want to interject is between now and towards the middle of April, I want an opportunity to send out a survey to all of our staff and all of our students. This ultimately affects them. And so I would love to know what their thoughts are on something, right? How do they feel about bus time? How do they feel about whatever it looks like? What do they like? What don't they like? I would love to know their input because it ultimately affects them. So how does it impact them? Positively, we improve the safety. We improve security. Which we're really lucky to live in rural Nebraska. We pretty much trust every person that walks to our front door. And I would say that's pretty much true even at our own homes. But it would make it fully accessible. We have students that have needs. And today in this facility, the wonderful, I call it the robot, that takes our children up the stairs, today can make those corners in this building. But if we were to put that same apparatus for any of our students in Wauneta, it cannot make the corners of those small stairwells. So that's an issue. And then a modern science lab. I would encourage you when you're in Wauneta next week, go take a look at that. It hasn't been updated since, I don't know when. And then improving those restrooms. And we did the remodel back in 2010, 2011 that increased our guest restrooms when we host events, but we don't have adequate restrooms in our learning part of the buildings today. And better HVAC. The board did a great job years ago and ordered PTACs, which are just your regular window unit. And that's been a great addition, but we have an aging boiler that when it's really cold, we hope we can get it started. And then when it does get started, then the 3rd floor is on fire, and that same thing happens here even though we have a new boiler here. So, and then increased gym space, which we've already covered that too. So why now? Is it a bad time to do this project? Well, this group has said, why haven't we? Why haven't we done this project? We've talked about it, and we've talked about it, and we've talked about it. We are planning for the future rather than to be reactive. And we do have 2 aging buildings, and that piece isn't going away, and we have prided ourselves on not coming to you and asking for a bond issue. The last bond was for the gym in Wauneta in the 50s. And I don't know if there was a bond issue for this gym as well. I can't answer that. I wasn't here. But interest rates are good. And I will tell you, I was just recently at a meeting, and the Fed is raising the interest rates. It went up 0.25%. For those of you that don't know financially, you will not see that impact for 6 months. And those rates aren't going to quit. They are going to continually raise because they're trying to slow down what's going on. They hope not to create a huge recession, but your interest rates will continue to go up. And we already talked about on the financial side, that could be anywhere between $400,000 and $600,000 that could cost us. And we've been planning, we've been saving the money because we know that we have 2 aging buildings. So now is the time. Is it fun to talk about these things? No, but that's why we're here talking to you today. As a board, we want to see our district here in 30 years. This merger's been here for 30 years. We want to be here 30 more years. We have people in our audience today that are going to be having babies. And it's super important that we have a great educational facility for them, whatever that looks like. But that's where we are today. Anything else to add, you guys? Okay. So next steps, we'll have exactly another informational at exactly the same time. This time you'll get to tour Wauneta, and we'll present exactly the same information. Our plan is to move into the final design and engineering phase. That will take 5 to 6 months. We hope to begin construction this fall or early winter. Complete construction on this phase, well, we're hoping might be by next May-ish maybe. But what we know is any renovation work that happens, which that's what we're calling the phase 2, is the renovation that would happen in Wauneta, that can only happen when we aren't in session. So the earliest that could happen would be May of 2023. And then that completion will take 2 years. So we'll have to probably modify some school calendars to get that done. But I really think it is a project worth moving forward. And when we started talking with these gentlemen, we learned that cost of materials was going up 1% a month. And just in looking at that, so everyone says we should just wait. Well, I'm afraid if we wait, it's going to cost us another $2 million just to say we want to do the same thing. And I don't know financially if we can afford to do that. So, again, I want to see us here for the long haul. We're proud Wauneta Palisade Broncos. I am proud to live in the Southwest Nebraska School District. And when I get asked by my neighboring friends in neighboring districts, what do you guys do well? Well, number one, we don't have a lot of turnover. We don't have turnover at our administrative level. We don't have a ton of turnover at our teacher level. And that's huge. And so we become attractive to others because we don't have a lot of things happening in our school, right? We have generally happy kids. This will come out in more public meetings, but at our last, what they call the continuous improvement process, we have to go through a 5-year accreditation. And that group just came and visited last month. And it was very positive. The culture of our school is very positive. The students feel very supported by the teachers. They feel that they have a true friend or someone that they feel safe that they can go talk to as a teacher or as an administrator. I don't know that you get that a lot of places that you go. I also talked with some people that work at the ESU that have moved from other districts into our ESU, and they will tell you they love coming to our buildings because we are super positive. We create a positive attitude and a positive atmosphere. And so that's what I want to see continue. It's super important to be invested in the future of our district and our students. So here is that QR code. We would like to open it up. Actually, first I want the board the opportunity to share some of their thoughts and comments. And then we will open up for about a 30-minute question and answer. And then once that is done, we'll be sticking around for other questions. So, board members, anything to share?
I think you said it all.
You're fearless leader. Administrators, do you have anything that you would like to share? Okay. But we're not done. You guys can keep talking. You can talk.
Well, I do want to back Allison up on that. This has been a long process that we have talked about, and we're to a point where if something would happen, that we would need another $200,000 fix on this building. What would we do there? What would we do with that? You know, whether or not we put a brand new building here, or not, is this building worth putting another Band-Aid on to where we can get it by for another year or 2 or 3? And we've had a lot of those, just in the years that I've been on the board. We've had many of those times where there's an emergency, we have to fix it, and it's always expensive. And so we'd like to avoid using our money towards a fix, or we want to use our money towards a fix, not just a Band-Aid to get us by again.
I guess my biggest concern is the safety and not knowing what's around the corner as an expense, kind of like you said. When I go home at night after a meeting, that's what I think. And the solution here just seems like something that could last a long time and give peace of mind to the next board, to the next generation, that they don't have to worry about quite as much as far as the facilities go. Whether or not it's this exact one or whatever it be, but it touches all bases, is how I feel about that.
Any other comments from the board? Don't feel like you have to. Okay. All right, so we will open it up for question and answer opportunities from our visiting public. So, yes, Tessa.
Would it be possible for the school board to do an economic impact study for both Palisade and Wauneta?
And what are you looking for specifically? Like if we were to have a bond issue in addition to?
What it would be, I guess, for us to lose this attendance center and go to Wauneta, what it will do to our businesses. I mean, we are so small, but I mean, I know our grocery store, our fueling stations, you know, do depend on our school too.
We can ask that question. We can see if we can find those individuals to help us do that. I can't answer that for you today, but yes, we can ask.
I have a question, Allison.
Yeah.
That's a really good question, and I don't know if it's very difficult to quantify something like that. As I said, I was at Eustis Farnham when we closed the Farnham site. We still played football games there, but then 2 years after I went to Ogallala, they no longer played football there. They moved all their football games over. I do know at one time, years ago, when I was in school, there were 2 grocery stores. The grocery stores had disappeared before I was there. There is still a restaurant in town. It was operating before, and it's still operating today in Farnham. I don't know if things have changed much. There's still a gas station there. The town was kind of sad because it was a thriving community at one time, but people had moved away. Fewer farmers around there, fewer cattlemen around there. It is difficult to quantify that, but it's a great question. I don't know who could do that study, but yeah, I know where you're coming from.
Yes, ma'am.
If the stakeholders agree to this plan, what's going to happen to this building after it's abandoned? I guess what's going to happen to this building?
Well, those are some things that we have talked about as well. Today, as our plan is set up, we aren't saying that we're moving all of our students from here to Wauneta. What we did hear you all say is that if we kept a presence here, we would have to build something new. So obviously the old structure would go away if we built something new here. That's probably something that the school board would have to look at, even if at some point we did choose to move everyone to Wauneta. I will share with you the 3 things we get hammered on. We get hammered on our taxes, we get hammered on how much time our students are spending on a bus, and our test scores suck. So, the feasibility study showed that if we are all under one location, greater collaboration happens and it should improve those test scores. But again, as I shared at the other meeting, we are continually teaching our kids what we think is going to be on the Nebraska Standards Test, but they keep moving that target. And so again, I said before, it's going to be really hard.
That is not true.
Doesn't the number one school in the state take the same test? They can take the test really well, but we can't. Right?
But I think that, from the people that we have talked to, that they say if you have, all of, every resource that you have, if you have that under one roof, that's a better learning environment for kids. So that's something that we can control and we can do. And if our teachers are, the resources of our teachers and all the other resources of the school, if we have those together, so every student has accessibility to that is a way to improve the education of everybody.
I don't know about having all the kids in one building would be a great idea necessarily. I mean, I don't know if I want my preschooler, kindergarten, whatever, hearing the conversation that the 7th, 8th grade seniors have. I mean, I know there's no way we can avoid what our kids learn or whatever, but I mean, to have those conversations heard by the little ones isn't a great thing.
I will share that when our children, like our lower elementary children, are with our upper grade children, those upper grade children are cleaning up their acts because they know they have little eyes watching
I
them.
will back that up. I hear it in this lawn all the time from my teachers.
But not on the buses.
Again, I rode a bus for over an hour and a half one way to school. And that is kind of your rite of passage. The stuff you don't want people to learn is stuff that we can't control that happens on the bus. And again, parenting comes down to you have that conversation with your child of what happened on the bus wasn't right. We will talk to the people. Again, you can't control everything, right? But I will say, I think we have an opportunity to build some great mentoring relationships with our younger students and our older students. We have kids in high school that would like to go into education, but they don't have the opportunity to go and visit those lower elementary grades. So they could have an opportunity if we were under one roof, and we're not saying we're doing that, but they would have that opportunity to go into that classroom and be a TA, assist that teacher. Then they'd find out, do they even want to go into education? Is this something that they even like? Instead of going through 3 or 4 years of school and then deciding, I don't like it, or maybe I really do. But I think there's an opportunity here to mentor. Freeman Public Schools utilizes what they call Freeman families. And they have kids from kindergarten through the 12th grade. And I don't know how many different families they have, but for an example, they have 8. And they have kids from every age that is considered a family. They come up with their own logo, they come up with their own name, but that is their secure group that they are with. I think it's twice a month they get together, but they do some team building things. But here's an opportunity for kids to mentor to each other, to grow relationships, and I just want to share, this particular school saw a huge decrease in referrals to the counselor because those students felt that they had somebody else that they could talk to. And I thought that was a really interesting thing, and I would love to see that happen in our district. But right now, we have 2 locations. I'm not sure how that would work. Again, that's something extra. But I just would share, Tessa, I feel that totally, but you know, when you need a babysitter, you're calling a high school kid, right? Or a junior higher to come and watch your kids. Again, so it's so important that these kids are building those relationships. Other questions? I saw you had a hand up.
We came in about 3-4 years ago. Best move we've ever made. You guys have a great school district. This place is amazing from what we came from. You should be proud of yourselves of what we're doing here. But also we came from a school that was K through 12. And that's what my son probably misses the most, is the interaction with the young kids. When he was little, he had somebody to look up for, somebody to strive for. They had Paw Pals, so they had an older kid that did things with them. The FFA worked with them. They did art projects and music concerts together, and he misses that interaction. And that held him to a higher standard of how he was going to act in high school. And they don't really have that. The high school kids don't have somebody really looking up to them at all hours, reminding of them. There's littles watching you, littles having bigs to help with, to look up to. It's a neat thing to watch happen, and you guys haven't had that for many, many years, but we watched it with our girls. Our middle daughter is becoming a kindergarten teacher because she got to be a teacher's assistant for 2 years. And she wouldn't have gotten that opportunity. She wouldn't have chosen that field without that opportunity. So I think you should look at the benefits of it.
Also, those of us that have teachers, our kids are around those students, the upper students, all the time. My kids adore them, and they adore them in return. Like, I think you guys are thinking the most negative possible thing, but our kids are amazing. You guys have no idea how awesome they are and how awesome they could be if they were allowed to form more of those relationships with these little guys. I think it would be amazing.
In my situation, the seniors are living underneath the same house with the kindergarten.
I can see that.
That's your own fault.
I have to apologize. I'm not great at articulating, and things may sound like they're coming out, maybe they're not. Just my perspective on what I'm saying, everything revolves. No, see, that's my articulation, that's wrong. It seems like you're trying to put a gym in, and sports is big at Wauneta Palisade, and I get it, I know it, I love it. However, having a child that is physically incapable of playing sports mentally has learning disabilities. And we go into IEPs and there's no administrators there. We get one teacher out of 5 that shows up. And you go to parent-teacher conferences that aren't even aware that she has an IEP or is struggling in any way. I heard multiple times tonight you say it's about the education, it's about the test scores. What I watched on the video from you and Wauneta the 15th, while we were in Omaha because of medical issues with her. It's all about the education. How can you sit there and say to somebody like me that has a child that struggles like that it's about the education, when we don't feel that from the teachers or from the administration? And yes, I may not know all the laws, but I do think there is supposed to be an administrator present at an MDT and an IEP, and there was not. To hear that the administrator is basketball, or a teacher is at basketball, or, oh, but it's okay, we get extra funding because she has an IEP. And yet, I don't see, and that's just it. Sports is such a physical thing that we get to see, while education to a child who loves to learn feels like she can't in that environment.
One thing I've gained from being on the board here and all the discussions we've had and meetings and research is the collaboration between the teachers, the elementary teachers. If they know something about a student and they're in the break room or something, and the high school teacher mentions something about an issue or a learning difficulty or something, that right there is something so almost simple, but can happen when everybody's in one building, that gets passed along so much easier than basically leaving one building and starting over at a new one. You get that.
I get that, but also taking your words and moving it further. Parent-teacher conferences, they had no idea she had an IEP. And she is in one school.
I would encourage you to take that up with administration, please. That is not something that the board makes decisions upon. Okay? That's the best answer.
But do you see where I'm coming from on that?
I want you all to know I see every side of this. And when our 2 districts merged 30 years ago, everyone remember what class size we were? C1, C2. Today, we're pretty solid D2. Sometimes we can be a D1. So our rural areas have declining populations. That's nothing that we, can shed, a shoulder to. It's happening. And again, we want to be able to provide a great opportunity for our students. We want to be prudent with our tax dollars and what we burden upon our taxpayers is huge. So we've always prided ourselves on not having a bond issue. And again, we will continue to listen to thoughts and comments, and we will continue to move forward in what's best for the district. Other questions? Yes, sir.
How is, so 8.7 to 9 million for the Palisade campus, how is that preschool from 4th grade building? the same amount as what you're doing on an entire school in Wauneta?
Be preschool through 5th, actually.
Okay.
Yep. Let's get to
Then
that.
you got 6 through 12 and a new gym, and that's 8.5. So how can it be for a small building be the same amount?
Well, most of the square footage at Wauneta exists that we're doing, and the cost is probably split between new and reno. Here, it's about 22 to 24,000 square foot that we need to replace that facility. And so my estimator just went back and did a cost analysis of what it would take to tear that down, replace it. What's that? Yeah. And that's putting a new kitchen in and some flex rooms. So it wasn't just 5 classrooms, it was, I think, 8 classrooms to cover. There was a library in there as well. And so there's a lot we're replacing. I have pretty good faith in this. I mean, we do a lot of schools every year. And so our cost analysis are typically pretty accurate. I don't think you have quite the square footage that you're putting in. You're also, over there, you're putting in a gym from a cost standpoint. Gym square footage is a lot less per square foot than a classroom or a kitchen. I hope that answers your question. So it's not an artificial number that we pull from the hip. I can show you. This is a typical total sheet that we work with. Every time we get an option, we've done a bunch of them here over the years. We do a comprehensive cost analysis, what we call a total sheet. And we go in and we'll actually break it down by construction division. So electrical, steel, concrete, masonry. And we actually do this on every option that we look at. And so it's pretty comprehensive. And so we're not arbitrarily just pulling square foot numbers out of the air. And so there is a lot of work that goes into that.
Other, sir? Yes.
I got a question. I feel like we're trying to connect a lot of dots here. That this is an old building and it needs a lot of work, and I understand that. And the new proposed construction at Wauneta is a new gym, a new kitchen, and some renovations on the existing building. And if we don't do a new construction, a $9 million new building here, what happens in Palisade, I guess, is the question I want to hear somebody say, because it feels like it's getting talked around a lot here.
So my question would be like on your $8.5 million up there, are you making room to make it K-12?
We certainly can, absolutely.
No, I said, are you making it that way? So it's so we're not in, because at $8.5 million, this would be my question, probably more for the architect, but at $8.5 million with the new gym, the new surroundings around the gym, and the renovations to the other building, does that give that building another 100 years, or are we going to be back at this point in 10 years with that building?
That's a good question.
It will definitely extend the useful life of that campus for sure. I'm not going to say exactly 100 years, but definitely a strong 50 to 100, somewhere in there. You know, there's lots of things that happen in the world that, you know, we can't necessarily anticipate or project, but just in terms of looking at our current environment and the educational facilities and just the educational programming in general, doing this project in Wauneta extends the useful lifespan of that campus a significant number of years. And then to your earlier question, doing that project there does put the district in a very good position to, upon completion of that project, the board will be in a good position to be able to decide. There really wouldn't need to be that much more done to that campus to bring all the students there, again, to an updated facility. There would potentially be a little bit of work that would need to be done as we look at like preschool and kindergarten, because those facilities have have some unique needs that some of the upper grade classrooms don't have, but really everything else would be there and ready for if the board would decide to bring all of the students there. So you would be very, very close to having the whole package there and ready to go in an updated facility that will serve the district well for quite a while.
And I don't know if this helps as well, trying to piggyback off that a little bit. So I talked about that lease purchase having about a 7-year life cycle. Now, potentially depending on what interest rates do, we're talking about 12 cents of the 14 cents that's being currently levied in the building fund going toward debt payments. If the board continues to levy that extra 2 cents, that's another $80,000 a year potentially, and if it's not used, maybe that lease purchase gets paid off a year early or something like that. Without a bond issue from a financial standpoint, we probably really need to see that get retired before there could be another, I guess, financing or to have enough cash to do a second piece. I don't know if that helps piggyback off of kind of what you're talking about.
I guess I just need a little clarification. So the module that you're looking at now, how many additional classrooms is that showing? Or would that give? Was it 3? And would that be enough space to bring everyone up, or we're not thinking?
We already have some classrooms that aren't fully utilized in the Wauneta building today. So for sure 2, possibly 3 that aren't utilized today that could potentially be used and would be worked into the renovation. And then where the current cafeteria and eating facilities are, we can easily make 3 more classrooms there. So that's 6, which is close.
The hard thing is just the size of the classrooms probably
Yep.
would not be necessarily
like you
feasible
said,
for littles.
Our preschool and kindergarten, there are certain rules and guidelines that we have to make sure we have enough square footage. They also have to have restrooms accessible to them. There's a whole list of stuff that, again, I don't know what they all are, but they are there.
So we would still have preschool and kindergarten here? This school would just be kindergarten, preschool?
We have not fully discussed that, no.
So what are we planning on building in Wauneta for then, to just, I mean, it doesn't sound like we're gonna move from here soon.
Well, we can't move from here soon. We're not set up in a position to move from here soon. So to answer that, when we originally started talking, I'm gonna be open and honest. We had said, what if we did? What if we could move everyone into one location? We would have to have additional new construction on Wauneta today. We would, because we don't have the facilities set up for preschool and for kindergarten. But what I just heard Tobin say was, if we can strategize financially, we would have an opportunity to work towards, if we needed to, do that piece. And again, we have one more meeting. We are making no decisions tonight. And there is no action taken at this meeting. But we have another public meeting that we want to listen to, who shows up at our Wauneta meeting, because they have just as much say as those of you that are here today. We don't know what that looks like, and that's why we're here gathering information. But we've talked about all of the options. We have. So.
But we're talking about problems with this building here and not having room at Wauneta under this project. So I'm having a hard time seeing what the benefits are besides a new gym and a new kitchen, and I support that. I don't think that's a bad thing, but what does that do for our kids here and the structure that we have here in an aging facility that we're all talking about, all the issues that we have here, but then we're putting all this money into a building for a gym and a kitchen and maybe a few classroom renovations.
And that doesn't save our busing, because we're still busing kids back. That's been a big talking point about saving on busing, right? And staff and things like that.
The reason that we looked at Wauneta is because it has the best structural footprint at this point in time. We know we can address those issues there today because we are set up financially. That's why we are looking at Wauneta today. And then we're having these meetings so we can visit and talk about what is the elephant in the room. What do you all want to see for your students? Do you want to see a building here? That's
But
what we're here to ask.
The current
So-
project that was proposed tonight doesn't do anything for the aging facility that we're talking about here tonight.
Because we've already addressed that if we do something here, we're gonna have to build brand new. We can't fix what we have today that's 98 years old. So, we are addressing it, but at this point in time, we are not financially set up to do that. I saw a hand up here, and then I'll come to you, John.
I just had a question about, so new construction requires a bond. But if you're gonna keep the gym and you attach your new building to the gym, would you have to use a bond to add a new facility addition to this building? Because evidently, I mean, obviously this is a lot newer.
If we did something inside this facility, it could come out of your general fund dollars.
You can't attach it to this
Nope,
facility?
because that's new construction.
Well, how do you attach it to the Wauneta facility and use it that way?
We didn't.
No, you did, because you're making additions to it.
That comes out of building fund money, not general fund.
But it's not, but it's kind of the same thing, right? You can't add classrooms to the side of the gym and bring in an addition?
Yeah, I think that lease purchase is for new construction, so the project is really kind of being divided from the cash equity that can be used from certain funds for that portion of it, with probably $4 million of new construction being utilizing those financing vehicles, because statutorily, that's how they can be used.
And John?
I guess if I understood Mark right, and talked about, to come up with the cost of a new Palisade building, just how many square foot there are here, that's what you'd need to build again. And I don't see anything close to 200 and some square feet. I don't remember how many you said.
22,000.
22,000 square feet of new classrooms in Wauneta. And I know that there's teachers here that use, they have their classroom, and they have a reading room, and then they have a storage room, and they use a lot of those things. And I suppose then we'd have to have classes maybe down in the cafeteria and lunchroom, subgrade. You know, we have windows to look out, there's light coming in and stuff, but I guess I think that's not a, I guess I don't think it's a good estimate when you're just gonna replicate this many new square feet. Because
Well,
certainly get by with less.
Yeah, it wasn't a replication.
Yeah,
We actually did a program. We actually did a space program on it to help them, to assist them with putting a number together on it. And that's what we came up with, using current codes and current educational standards. And you take in preschool, kindergarten section of first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, and a flex classroom, media center, kitchen, dining room, two sped rooms, and an office area, and restrooms, new public restrooms, and then renovate this gym here. That's what
We also looked at, the board looked at a modular system, which is much cheaper. And I know that at this point in time, I think they're almost 50 years old, modular buildings that they're still using in Beatrice. So
I understand where you're coming from with the modular buildings.
Yeah.
But the first thing that's gonna happen is somebody's
Well,
gonna turn around.
I'm just saying that there's other choices. We also looked
Right.
at a steel building and hiring somebody to finish the inside of it, you know, and some things like that.
First thing that's gonna happen is somebody's gonna bitch
There are
about
ways
their
to do
kid walking outside in the cold to go to the bathroom or go to lunch.
Right,
And
unless you.
Okay, we have one more minute.
Okay.
One more
But
minute.
You're not fixing the problem that you're all worried about, the Palisade building, if you're gonna build and spend $8 or $9 million in Wauneta and not do something here, you know, other than close it. You're not fixing that one that you all said is one of the big ones.
I went to school in Wauneta, you know, I went from kindergarten to I graduated there, all in one building. I'm sure there's who all went to school in Palisade. You know, y'all went to kindergarten through here in one building, and it's the same, I mean, they haven't changed rooms, but it's been done. There's things, technology's changed a lot of things, you know, we had a library, we had a computer room, but, I mean, it's, you know, there's there's space to do it. So that's just, I mean, we did it, when we did it, there was room for everybody in it, so.
This district did
Okay, last question. And then we will allow for you to come and visit with us. Yes, sir.
I'm gonna stand for this. I got this for a second. I apologize. I might not take a minute, but I don't really care. So I'm sorry. I would like to address the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room isn't the fact that a building is going to fix the education that your kids are getting. And I apologize for throwing that out there. I had the blessing to work with an ESU for almost a decade. And part of that was seeing some of the best schools and educators in the world. Yeah, I fixed technology, but I also have the blessing of seeing what we could do with education. And I don't mean to call out our school because I know there are a lot of great intentions. And that is never the case. But I will tell you that good teachers fail under bad administrations. And struggling teachers do wonderful under a great administration. And what we have here, obviously, is a very poor attempt.
Do you have a question about the building?
Yes,
That's what
you
we're
need
here
to
for.
sit down.
I don't want to listen to what you have to say.
The meeting we will have an informational meeting next week in Wauneta. Walkthrough at 5, informational meeting at 6.
By the way, your kids have been on the CSI list for 6 years running.
Sit down.
Bathroom break.
Bottom school in the
If you
state.
guys have questions, you can come ask.
It's not what we're here to talk about.
Is it though?
No, it's not.
Okay then.